All right, we are live on YouTube. We are live on Instagram. Good morning, folks. My name is Dustin Jones, and you are listening to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. So, today we are going to be talking about hand grip issues and some accessories that we can use to be able to achieve higher intensities. This is a very, very common barrier that we will come across when we're trying to achieve higher intensity exercise, in particular resistance training or higher levels of difficulty of different mobility training or transfers in the realm of geriatrics. That you run into some barriers, one of them being, ow, my hand, my grip or wrist is starting to become bothersome, and we're often having to use our upper extremities to apply that load. How can we work around those barriers so you can continue to pursue and achieve higher intensities and work around those issues? All right. So this is going to be kind of show and tell, right? So if you're listening in your car, I'm going to explain all of these accessories, but I would definitely check out the video, and I'm going to share where you can find links for all of these things at the end of the episode. All right. So we don't want to let sore grip, hands, wrists limit us, be the limiting factor in applying load. So let's work through some things of how we can work around that barrier. So the first one I want to speak to is a very common thing that we will want to achieve with many of our folks, and that is their ground mobility, of being able to get to and from the ground. A floor transfer is such a potent activity that when you are not able to do that, or if you lack confidence in doing that, if you've had that transformation to being able to get to and from the ground without assistance, maybe with a piece of furniture, that is a very empowering thing. It has huge implications for their lives, their confidence in what they choose to do or not do. It's a heavy hitter in terms of interventions, but it can be tough on the wrist. And so when we're going to weight bearing, what I want you to think about is first the surface, right? If you are trying to provide a soft, comfortable, cushioned surface when you're doing something like a floor transfer, when those folks are going to be going down into quadruped, putting their hand and palm down into the ground, that soft foam, lovely cushiony surface is going to allow their palm to continue to sink down, basically putting their wrist in hyper extension, which can be troublesome for many individuals. So you want to think about a soft but firm surface. You want to think about, maybe instead of using an open hand, maybe I can use my fists down into that surface. You could also use some compression to make it a little more tolerable. And this is the first accessory that can be very useful in many scenarios, and that is a wrist wrap. You will commonly see these. You probably see them in your local gym or CrossFit gym, but you will see this. Basically, you loop your thumb through this little loop, and then you wrap this basically neoprene sleeve over your wrist, and it applies compression. Basically just squeezes your wrist, and it will typically allow people to tolerate wrist extension a little bit easier, and also just bearing weight, whether on the ground or you're holding a weight in your hand. You could also think about leveraging the forearms as well. That can make getting to and from the ground a little bit easier on the grip, hand, wrist. All right, so that's weight bearing. I want to go ahead and get that out of the way because we want to really encourage folks to do that and not let the wrists and hands be a limiting factor in that realm. Now, let's talk about when we're giving them load. We're giving them a kettlebell. We're giving them a barbell. We're giving them dumbbells. We're applying our resistance so we can achieve all the lovely things that we know come from that old, not weak philosophy, right? So the first one, and this is probably going to be a controversial one for many listening, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, is workout gloves. I typically am adamantly opposed against people wearing those ridiculous workout gloves with the padding and the fingers cut off. You will never, I'll say this now, and I'm going to regret saying this, but I don't see myself ever wearing those working out, but who knows, right? Who knows down the road that may change. And I'm saying all this knowing that it is very beneficial to me, the folks that I work with. So here at Stronger Life Fitness Facility for folks over 55, a lot of folks, they have osteoarthritis, they have some arthritic-based pain, inflammatory pain in their hands and their grip. And that glove, as much as I hate to say it, really helps them tolerate higher loads. And it's not that they're trying to prevent blisters and things along those lines. What that glove does, that padding, allows for a greater grip circumference around a dumbbell or a barbell or a kettlebell. So they're not gripping as tight or as small, their circumference is bigger. And for folks that have a painful grip, that feels a whole lot better. So the thicker the handle, usually the better off these folks are going to be. And so wearing these gloves can make it more comfortable to grab onto that barbell, dumbbell, or kettlebell. Can't believe I said it, but I'm saying it. I'll recommend a workout glove. All right. Hate me for it. I'll probably be wearing them, and who knows when. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they are very helpful in certain situations. All right. So the next one, if we have, upper extremity issues or pain, particularly related to the grip, one helpful thing is going to be a lifting strap. So basically just think a piece of fabric that has a loop. So you basically are able to take that piece of fabric, loop it around your wrist, and then loop it around a handle of a weight. Typically you see this with barbells, but I've used them with dumbbells, with kettlebells, and it basically distributes the demand of holding on to that weight across a bigger area, and in particular the wrist. So if you've ever gone for a max lift or powerlifting or anything along those lines, you may see some folks use this, and you can lift a lot more weight. Definitely with something like a deadlift, with these straps, you're able to hold on to a whole lot more weight, and all we're doing is basically broadening that area and allowing the wrist to bear some of that weight as opposed to just your grip. So the straps can be helpful in that scenario. The only drawback with the strap for me, the folks I work with, if we're talking geriatrics, is just the setup. Typically it's very therapist assisted. And so just know that you're probably going to be involved with that. If you don't have a lifting strap, we can do the old Gary or home health version and use a gait belt. You can take an old school gait belt, loop it around or wrap it around the wrist, and then loop it through. And you can basically create your own weightlifting strap with a gait belt. I've used that a lot in home health. Just know that you're going to have a lot of slack, if you will. So you'll be needing to manage that. But if we are going to use weightlifting straps, usually in geriatrics, you're going to need to be involved for setup. That's not always the case, but at least in my experience, that has been the case. So next thing, let's say grip may be painful or limited, or let's say they may have had a stroke, for example, where it may be very affected on one side, where they're not able to hold that weight, but you want that weight to be able to apply that stimulus kind of in that systemic manner. We can use something like a lifting hook. So this is, think of Velcro strap, and connected to that strap is literally a metal hook, and you put it around your wrist, and you basically can fit a barbell, a dumbbell handle, a kettlebell handle in this hook, and be able to do things like deadlifts, like loaded carries, for example. A lot of things that we can do to load up the body. Hooks are awesome. These are easily found on Amazon. I'll share some of those links at the end. And very inexpensive. I mean, we're talking less than $20-15 for these. So that's the hooks. All right. Last thing I want to mention in this realm as well is just bring up that wrist wrap again. I have a lot of folks that when we start to load, especially when we're doing higher intensities, north of 60-70% of their 1RM, particularly with pressing overhead or a clean position. Early on, that can be tough for a lot of folks. It's kind of new territory for them. They haven't built that tolerance yet. And so this compression from this wrist wrap can be helpful to where they can still load up and reduce some of those symptoms. So wrist wraps are a solid recommendation there. All right. So those are kind of accessories related to grip and hand. Now let's talk about if you need to basically eliminate load to the upper extremity. Let's say someone that's had a stroke that's severely impacted on one side, to where, let's say, the lifting hook may not be a good option because they don't have good shoulder stability, for example. Let's say you have an upper extremity amputee, for example. How can we apply load in other areas so we can still achieve that higher intensity, but not let that upper extremity limitation get in the way of them being able to get the results that they deserve? So one thing I want to mention right out the gate that's been a very innovative product in this realm is the adaptive single arm lifting attachment. So this was created by Logan Aldridge, who's now a Peloton coach, but he was or is a CrossFit athlete. And he has really kind of influenced this realm of adaptive equipment in a pretty significant manner. And he is known to be throwing up some heavy numbers with deadlift, for example, with this adaptive single arm lifting attachment. And all it basically does is hook to one end of the barbell, comes up over the shoulder, and hooks to the other end of the barbell. So you can just have one hand and it's still going to be stable. Very, very useful if you want to limit load through the upper extremity. Another thing that we can do, and Alex Germano is on here watching, this is one that she will use in the home setting, is doing something like a purse carry, where we attach a weight in the fashion of a purse. And we'll commonly do that with a gait belt. So we can just loop the gait belt through the handle. Kettlebells are perfect for this. To where you loop it through, and then you basically just put that gait belt up over your shoulder. On one shoulder, you could do it cross body, and basically doing a loaded carry, but not loading the limited upper extremity, but loading the body. The purse carry is a great way to kind of distribute that load. We can also do something like weighted vests, where they're wearing the weight. If you're in home health, probably a backpack, right? You can load up in that fashion and kind of work around the upper extremity limitation. Belt squats are great as well. This requires a setup, right? That home healthers, you may be a little bit tougher. You can kind of engineer this with a gait belt and looping the gait belt through a weight, but also around the waist. That's loading basically the pelvis and the legs, and keeping the upper extremity out of the equation, which can allow them to continue to achieve those higher intensities. And then we think about different pieces of equipment that we may see in a PT clinic or a gym. A single arm rowing attachment is another option. If there's a big upper extremity limitation and they can only use one arm, they have a single arm rowing attachment you can throw on that concept too, and allow people to continue to achieve those higher intensities. That was a lot, right? Lots of show and tell. If you're listening to this, I encourage you to watch this video. But the big thing that I want to leave you all with is, don't let a cranky grip or wrist or upper extremity limitation prevent you from achieving a higher intensity with your folks. There's so many ways that we can work around a lot of these issues to continue to get the results these folks deserve. Now, if you're thinking, man, I'd love to check out those hooks, those wraps, those straps, all those toys, I'm going to encourage you to do one thing. I want you to check out our new ebook that we released about a week ago. It's the Ultimate Jerry Equipment ebook. This was just emailed to y'all, to many of y'all, through the Hump Day Hustle email. You could also find it on ptonice.com, and you click on free resources. But this ebook has all of these accessories that I just mentioned, plus tons of other equipment ideas of what you would want in your clinic or gym if you're going to be working with older adults. And we break it down by kind of fundamental, foundational pieces of equipment to optional, and then break it up by benefit, by strength, balance, endurance, and then mobility. And so we organize it in a fashion you can literally click the link and say, yeah, I definitely want that with that new budget you have or that new clinic that you're starting. All right. You will find all the links to what I mentioned today in that ebook. Go to Hump Day Hustle email. It's the first link in there, or go to ptonice.com and then click free resources. All right, before I leave, I do want to mention CERT MMOA. So we are starting 2024 strong with all three of our course offerings that culminate into the certification. Our online level 1 course just sold out. We won't be doing that again until March 13th. Level 2 starts tomorrow. The next one is not going to be until May or June. And then on the road, we've got tons of courses coming up. We're going to be all across the country. So if you're thinking about taking our live course, it's super fun, but it's going to be super convenient for you to get to this year in particular, because we've really ramped up where we are going to be. I want to mention a few in particular that you all want to check out. They're in different parts of the country. January 20th and 21st, we have 2 courses, Greenville, South Carolina, and then we're going to be down in Clearwater, Florida. And then January 27th and 28th, we're going to be in Kearney, Missouri. All right, so check out those 3. There's tons more on the list if you're on the West Coast. In different parts of the country. We're going to be close to you at some point in 2024. All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate you. Grab that ebook. Y'all have a lovely rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye, YouTube.